Telling you that snooker might die seems like a stupid thing to say because at the moment it appears like everything's being handled more than adequately, quite well in fact, with the World Championships being more than sensibly rearranged into the freed up Olympic time slot, even if this means having to play in front of an empty arena again. Even if this year's World Championships is really exciting, unfortunately this may not be enough to prevent the decline of snooker. Here's why. Welcome back, and if it's your first time watching one of our videos, then it's fantastic to have you here. This video should be going out during the World Championships, the busiest time of the year for snooker. But it's not. Unfortunately, to help prevent the spread of the virus, this had to happen and there was no other way around it. Instead of running the tournament through the end of April into the May 4th bank holiday, it was instead postponed until the 31st of July, running through to Sunday the 16th of August, where handily the Crucible had a free time slot. Now you're probably expecting me to say nobody's going to be watching because they'll all be on the beach, but
a lot of those viewers actually live in the UK.
You're unlikely to say, however, that people won't watch the Olympics because it's summer. However, people won't watch the Olympics because it's been cancelled due to the coronavirus. And cunningly, the World Championships is now on instead of the Olympics. Meaning if people still have to stay inside more than normal in August, there will actually be some sport on the TV, which is likely to generate far greater interest watching where all the balls are going.
Where's the cue ball going?
So at the moment it looks like snooker could benefit from this, and even more so when you consider this graph. This shows the snooker season month by month. The further up the balls go, the greater people's interest, which is really low until the bigger tournaments start from September onwards. This slowly starts to gain momentum with the UK and Masters tournaments in the middle of winter, but there's a huge spike when the World Championships come along in April, which hangs around for a little bit. This graph shows us two valuable things. Interest in snooker is far higher during the World Championships in April than at any other time of the year, and interest in snooker is fairly high in May when there's no snooker whatsoever going on. The reason this May bubble exists is a little bit confusing, but I see the benefit, well, I normally see the benefit of it every single year, with a larger number of people looking for my videos online. So why is the audience there when technically the snooker isn't? I have a lot of videos on the basics of playing snooker, so that might be how to screw the ball back, or how to play shots with side spin. These are things that the casual fan that only watches once a year actually wants to know. And because the World Championships generate such high audience figures, people are still talking about this for nearly a month later. And that's because for everyone who plays regularly, there's a lot more people who are still enthusiastic about the game that don't. People don't tend to like it, but businesses profit from the masses rather than the small group of fanatics. It's why advice always seems to be targeted at the least capable, and why Ronnie O'Sullivan is able to draw more of a crowd than anybody else. His name just simply carries more weight. But back to the month of May and why that's so significant. This is usually the time for somebody who plays regularly that the busy season's at an end. But there's far more people who play once or twice a year rather than occasionally, making this a profitable time for snooker clubs. I'm not saying they have thousands of people running to their doors, but there is a measurable uptake at this time of year. Unfortunately, one of the failings of snooker in recent times is to appreciate its audience as more than just viewers of the sport. Even people who rarely play snooker still want to feel like it's a world they're connected to, rather than something they're just being shown. In terms of significance, it's almost completely irrelevant, and that's probably why it's overlooked. But the better you're able to play snooker, the greater your appreciation will be of how difficult shots are to play. And even if you're never going to be world champion, you do want to feel like you're on the same ladder, competing at some level. Even though TV profits are doing better than ever before, that's not helping people to feel connected to the game, snooker's main market. Not only is this struggling, it's become snooker's weak link. And unfortunately, it's through its weakest link that snooker could fail. And that means the professional level of the game starts to become more and more disconnected from reality. You start expecting players to make very difficult shots, and it looks to anyone new to playing the game that they've got a higher and higher mountain to climb. But could this be changed for 1 year only for the grassroots player by moving the date of the World Championships into early August? Normally this would be perfect timing, right before the amateur season is about to begin. But the key problem with that sentence is the word normally. And just like that, we've very nearly got to the problem that's in danger of killing off snooker. In normal circumstances, casual fans usually get excited about the World Championships and go and play in their local club, while the rest of us go on holiday for about 3 months after the World Championships finishes. This year, the gap between the World Championships and what you might call the amateur season is only 3 weeks rather than 3 months, and new players are far more likely to hang around for this time. But here's the problem. Snooker clubs at the moment simply aren't open. And if you look at it realistically, they're likely to be the last things that should and will be open to the public. If I had to guess, I'd say they're likely to be open, but an awful lot can change between now and the beginning of August. And a lot of other businesses are likely to be in greater demand first. And that's not to forget that things are going to be very different for you depending on where you live. Like, for example, Paul in Newcastle in the UK is going to be very different to Sharaf in Constantine in Algeria. If snooker does appear at this time as it's expected to, then I can see a huge demand from people wanting to play. It's just a case of whether or not they'll be allowed in the club, and this could be critical for the future of snooker, not just the snooker clubs that will be in desperate need of their business. This is snooker's version of Schrodinger's box. If we were to open up the box and find people were able to use snooker clubs, then snooker itself would do well. However, if we were to open the box and find a great number of people weren't able to access a snooker table, then snooker is likely to suffer. We just won't know until we actually open the box. What is in this box anyway? Oh, what did you do in there? So it turns out this is Schrodinger's cat, not his box. Okay. But I think the analogy still stands. How well snooker fares out of this will be somewhere on a broad spectrum. It's unlikely to overnight become more popular than it was in the 80s. And in the same way, it's unlikely to become an obscure sport that everybody still likes but nobody really remembers or takes seriously. It's likely to be somewhere in between and take quite a while to actually get there. As I've already explained, snooker is probably weakest at getting people with a clear interest in the game to an actual snooker club and playing on an actual table. And I think it's very unlikely that current events are going to result in more snooker clubs being opened. Quite the opposite, unfortunately. It's almost like the coronavirus is attacking snooker's weakest link, making it not only the biggest threat to this channel, but also the biggest threat to snooker as a whole, purely through financial implications. So other than following advice to try and make this pandemic go away as quickly as possible, is there actually anything we can do? Well, maybe. Although we might not be able to do anything just yet, and it will depend on the specific area in which you live, but it does involve supporting the places in which you play snooker. When all of this is over, we need to reconnect snooker's audience with the game as quickly as possible, but we need to be very, very careful about how we do it. And unfortunately, this does mean being patient and not rushing back to doing things the way we were too quickly, in a way that causes people to unnecessarily panic and reimpose restrictions on when and where we can play snooker. Things aren't going to go back to the way they were. They are going to change. Luckily, however, how they change is going to be up to us. If you want to see how snooker survived greater problems than this, then why not have a look at snooker's biggest controversies, or find out how you can play a trick shot without even having a snooker table. And remember, don't just watch, play, and make the commitment to becoming a better player by subscribing to the channel and visit the website. See you later.